Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everything in between. Alright, let's see. It is Tuesday, July 12th, 2011, and this is voice practice number 17. I'm Tanya, and here we are once more. So, just another day here at, got a scooter! Anyway, that's not a big deal. But anyway, let's see. So, again, I'm just here, practice my voice a little bit, get a little better at it, a little bit better each day, and maybe after 100 of these videos, we'll see where we're at. So, anyway, as always, Texas from Project Gutenberg, and you know my little spiel. So, okay, let's see. So, where were we at? We were at divide our army in two. Okay, so we are in chapter 3 of Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and just about to reach verse 9 there in this in chapter 3 of 13 chapters. Okay, alright, so some water. Come on. I'm picking up right where we left off yesterday, so.
Tumu takes exception to the saying, and at first sight indeed it appears to be to violate a fundamental principle of war. Cao Kung, however, gives the clearest Sun Tzu's meaning. Being two to the enemy's one, we may use one part of our army in the regular way, and the other for some special diversion. Chang Yu thus further elucidates the point. If our force is twice as numerous as that of the enemy, it should be split up into two divisions, one to meet the enemy in front, and one to fall upon his rear. If he replies to the frontal attack, he may be crushed from behind. If to the rearward attack, he may be crushed in front. This is what is meant by saying the one part may be used in the regular way, and the other for some special diversion. Tumu does not understand that dividing one's army is simply a regular. Tumu does not understand that dividing one's army is simply irregular, just as concentrating it is a regular strategical method. And he is not too hasty in calling this a mistake. 9. If equally matched, we can offer battle. Li Chun, followed by Ho Shi, gives the following paraphrase. Attackers and attacked are equally matched in strength. Only the able general will fight. If inferior in numbers, we can avoid the enemy. Meaning, we can watch the enemy is certainly a great improvement in the above, but unfortunately there appears to be no good authority for the variant. Chang Yu reminds us that saying only applies if the other factors are equal. A small difference in number is often more than counterbalanced by superior energy and discipline. If quite unequal in every way, we can flee from him. 10. Hence, though an obstinate fight may be made by a small force, in the end must be captured by the larger force. 11. Now the general is the bulwark of the state. If the bulwark is complete at all points, the state will be strong. If the bulwark is defensive, the state will be weak. As Liu Chuan justly puts it, that gap indicates deficiency. If the general's ability is not perfect, i.e. he is not thoroughly versed in his profession, his army will lack strength. There are 3 ways in which a ruler can bring misfortune upon his army. 13. 1. By commanding his army to advance territory, being ignorant of the fact that it cannot obey. This is called hobbling an army. Li Chuan adds the comment, it is like tying together the legs of a thoroughbred, so it is unable to gallop. One would naturally think of the ruler in this passage as being at home and trying to direct the movements of his army from a distance. The commentators understand just the reverse and quote the saying of Jia Kung. The kingdom should not be governed from without, and an army should not be directed from within. Of course, it is true in that during an engagement, or when in close touch with the enemy, the general should not be in the thick of his own troops, but a little distance apart. Otherwise, he will be liable to misjudge the position as a whole and give wrong orders. 14. I attempted to govern an army the same way as he administers a kingdom, being ignorant of the conditions under which obtain in an army. This causes restlessness in the soldiers' minds. Cao Kung's note is, really translated, the military spirit are wholly distinct. You can't handle an army in kid gloves. Zhao Yu says, humanity and justice are the principles on which to govern a state, but not an army. Opportunism and flexibility, on the other hand, are military rather than civil virtues to assimilate the governor of an army back to that of a state. Understood. 15. By employing the officers of his army without discrimination. That is, he is careful not to use the right man. He is careful to use the right man in the right place. Though ignorance of military adaptations to circumstances, this shakes the confidence of the soldiers. I follow Mei Yachun Qian here. The other commentators refer not to the ruler as in SS 1314, but to the officers he employs. Thus, Tu says, if the general is ignorant of the principles of adaptability, he must not be entrusted with a position of authority. Tu quotes, the skillful employers of men will employ the wise men, the covetous man, and the stupid man. The skillful employers of men will employ the wise man, the brave man, the covetous man, and the stupid man. The wise man delights in establishing his merit. The brave man likes to show his courage in action. The covetous man is quick at seizing advantages, and the stupid man has no fear of death. 16. But when the army is restless and distrustful, trouble is sure to come from the other feudal princes. This is simply bringing anarchy into the army and flinging victory away. Thus we may know that there are 5 essentials for victory. 1. He who knows when to fight, when not to fight. Zhang Yu says, if he can fight, he advances and takes the offensive. If he can't fight, he retreats and remains on the defensive. He will invariably conquer who knows whether it is right to take the offensive or the defensive. 2. He will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. This is not merely the general's ability to estimate numbers correctly, as Li Chuan and others make note. Zhang Yu expounds the saying more satisfactory. By expanding the art of war, it is possible with lesser force to defeat a greater, and vice versa. The secret lies in an eye for locality, and in not letting the right members movement slip. Thus, Wu Tzu says, with a superior force make for easy ground, and an inferior one make for difficult ground. 3. He will win for difficult ground. He will make for difficult ground. Difficult ground. Difficult ground, difficult ground, difficult ground, difficult ground. Difficult ground. 3. He will win whose army is animated with the same spirit through all its ranks. 4. He will win who, prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. 5. He will win who, his military capacity is not interfered with by the sovereign. Zhou Ran quotes Wang Su as saying, it is the sovereign's function to give broad instructions, but to decide on battle distinctly is the function of the general. It is needless to dilate on the military disaster which have been caused by undue interference with operations in the field on the part of the home government. Napoleon undoubtedly owed much of his extraordinary success to the fact that he was not pampered by a central authority. 18. It's the same. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will suffer a defeat. Li Chuan cites the case of Ho Qian, Prince of Qin, who in 383 AD marched with a vast army against the Qin Emperor. When warned not to despise an an enemy who could command the services of such men as Xia Alan and Yuan Chun. I have the population of 8 provinces at my back. Infantry and horsemen with the number of 1 million. They could dam up the Yangtze River itself merely by throwing their whips into the stream. What danger have I to fear? Nevertheless, his forces were soon after disastrously routed at the Bay River, and he was obliged to beat a hasty retreat. If you know either If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Chang Yu said, knowing the enemy enables you to take the offensive. Knowing yourself enables you to stand on the defensive. Defensive. He adds, attack is the secret of defense. Defense is the planning of an attack. It will be hard to find a better epitome of the root principle of war. Alright, okay. That'll do it for tonight. So, thank you all for seeing us tonight. And as always, I'm Tanya. The text is from Project Gutenberg. And I'll see you again tomorrow. And good night and good luck.